Hi, in today's video, I will be showing you how I drew this iguana using the Derwent Lightfast color pencils. Now, as always, I start off my drawing with a graphite pencil sketch, and as I'm going to work area by area or section by section, I will lighten the graphite with an eraser and then work with the color pencil so that when I'm blending, I don't get the graphite mixing with the color pencil and creating a muddy look. So with all my animal portraits or paintings, I start them, or drawings, I start them with the eye. I start off with the eye. You can see I'm layering in multiple layers of color pencil before I'm blending with odorless mineral spirits. If you see that you don't have too many layers on, or you didn't have enough layers of color pencil before you blend with the mineral spirits, you will notice that the tooth of the paper or the grain of the paper will show through. That's perfectly fine. Let it dry completely and then go over it with more layers of pencil and blend again. The more layers you get in, the more realistic and the more three-dimensional your drawing will look. Just remember, after every layer of a couple of layers, about 4 or 5 layers of pencil, you can blend, let it dry, and it can be more than 4 or 5 layers of pencil. I'm just giving you an estimate of more or less how many layers I put on each section when I'm working. It's about 4, 5, maybe 6 layers of pencil, and then I blend with the odorless mineral spirits, and then I let it dry completely, and then I go on to another area, work on that, and come back to that area if I need to refine anything or add more layers. So you can see with an iguana, they have a lot of skills. I am paying close attention around the eye to the shadows, the highlights in the eye, the shadows around the eye, the shadows in the creases and on his skin, even the shadows of the scales themselves. Paying close attention to that. The more I study my reference photo, the better I'll be able to make my drawing by paying attention to the highlights and the shadows and the darker areas, the lighter areas, the creases, the folds, the shadows. All of that helps to create a more three-dimensional look as well as a more realistic look or more realistic animal. So you can see I have drawn the scales and I'm working section by section just so that I don't get lost. But I do have my graphite pencil drawing, which will help me as a map and a guideline as to each section that I'm working on. Now, when I'm looking at the reference photo, I'm not drawing every scale as I see it in the drawing. I'm not counting the number of scales. I'm just looking at the area of the scales, the size of the scales, the shape, the angle, and more or less how many are around that area, and I'm putting it in there. I'm not drawing every single scale as per the reference photo, but I am studying my reference photo so that I can get a more accurate drawing by knowing exactly where I'm putting my shadows and where I'm putting my highlights and where the darker areas need to be, and also the different colors of different shades of green. For example, if there's an area that's too bright, I can tone it down with a little more browns or more um, darker greens. If there's an area that's too dark, I can obviously lighten it up by using lighter color greens. If it's looking dull, I can bring up my colors and add more saturation to my drawing with the colors that I'm using. So as you can see, I'm working now section by section. I'm covering the scales, working on individual scales as well, because each scale have the highlights they have shadows. Between the scales, there are shadow areas as well. So as you can see, those lines that I've drawn with the color pencil after lightening the graphite pencil, it's there for me to see where the shadow areas are. So some of the parts of those lines are not solid single thickness. Some areas are thicker, some lines are thinner, some parts of the lines are thinner, some parts are thicker. That's because of the various shapes of the scales and also the shadows that are casting over onto the scales below one another. I find working that section by section helps you to be able to find your place, especially with something like this, or if you've got a bird with feathers, even some areas with fur. You need to work in a particular section, get that perfect or get that to what you want it to look like, move to another section, work on that area. Don't try to do the entire piece one time. You will get overwhelmed and you will not be able to get it to look the way you want to. Work section by section, study your reference photo, apply what you're seeing as closely as possible to the reference photo, and just make sure you are using a light hand multiple layers of pencil, and your spurs make it easier to blend the color pencil as well. But you can use a blender as well, or the color pencils itself. You can blend with them as well. You can see I'm adding the shadows. That's the shadow area on his skin. Now, if you work section by section, you will go back at some point to go back to an area and refine that area. Maybe the colors need to be adjusted. Maybe there needs to be more shadows in the area, or maybe a highlight got covered that you need to bring out again. And you can do that. You can go back, change it, add the colors that you need to fix, and continue with what you're doing. You don't have to say you're never going back to that area again. When you finish, you will find things that you need to adjust and change in certain areas of your subject, which you can do when you finally finish your piece, walk away, leave it for about a few minutes or even a day, come back to it, and you will notice things that you want to adjust or things that you want to change or things that you just want to add more highlights, more shadows. Remember, the shadows and the highlights are what makes a subject or a drawing or a painting look more realistic and look more three-dimensional. Now with the jawline, I'm paying close attention to it. I want to make sure that I'm putting in the shadows where they need to be to show his structure of his bone structure, his skeletal structure. Remember, when you're drawing any animal, you need to pay attention to their muscular structure as well as their skeletal structure. You need to see how their bones are and how their muscles are showing through their fur or through their feathers or through their scales. By paying attention to these points, you will create a more realistic look for your animal and create a more realistic drawing because you'll be paying attention to the movement of the body and how that animal moves and how that animal is built. You can see I'm darkening the area of the jawline because that is where the shadows are falling according to my reference photo. And I'm working again section by section and scale by scale. Every scale have got, you can see even when I'm blending each individual scale. Every scale has got different colors. It's got shadows, highlights, and multiple greens. So I need to bring all of that together. If I just try to get the brush right over all of that, I will lose some of those lines of the shadows of each individual scales, as well as I will be blending that darker color into the greens, which will create a more muddy look and it will just not really have that vibrant, saturated look that I'm looking for. So now I'm moving on to his neck area. Now with the iguanas, the neck has a lot of hanging skin on it. So there are shadows because the skin is overlapping. Pay close attention to your reference photo when drawing, for example, an iguana. Or even if you're drawing feathers, if you're drawing a bird, pay attention to the overlapping feathers. There should be shadows cast onto the bottom feathers. Same with fur. The fur underneath, there's certain areas where the fur is over a certain area, or where they have clumps of fur over another area. That area of fur underneath that area of that clump of fur will have shadows. That shadows is what's going to make it look more three-dimensional. So you can see I have darkened it quite a bit because I really want to bring out those shadows in his neck. But at the same time, although I've darkened it, I've kept those scales because I've initially drawn those scales out with the darker green and then I went over it with the darker colors to bring out that's a mix of black and green. It's not a solid black, it's mixed with the green and black, and I think I've also used the midnight black as well. But now I'm just going through and just redefining some of the scales that did get blended. That's what I was telling you about earlier on, blending of the green area around his mouth area and his jaw area. If you try to blend the entire area but just running the brush across, you will lose some of that. And you will mix that darker color into the lighter areas. So this way, you got the darker area. If you try to just go over, you will lose some of those lines and need to go back and just refine those lines and bring them out again. So see, I'm back at the jaw again, adding more shadows into the jawline. So you can see his bone structure on his jaw. You can see the skin overlapping on his neck. You can see the shadows between the scales. Now this drawing took me approximately 5 hours and 15, 16 minutes. But if a drawing takes you longer, or shorter, it's fine. But if it takes you longer, it's fine. Take your time and work section by section. If you don't finish a piece in a session you've got today, put it to your next session or tomorrow. Continue with it then. Do a little every day or a little whenever you get a chance to. By the end of your time that you've drawn, even if you've taken 2, maybe 3 days to draw it, or even a week, you will have your desired results that you wanted. Your drawing will look more like what you envision. If you try to rush it through, you will see it in your final drawing because you will miss certain things. You will just cover areas quickly and you will not get that detail that you need to have in a drawing. Okay, so now I'm moving on to his side of his body. You can see by the neck area where he has the um, sort of little blades hanging from his neck, from his scales. Those are covered with color, but they are not done. I'm going to go back and touch up on the shadows of those to make them look more real. At the moment, I blended them. I'm waiting for it to dry. So if you try to go over an area like there, I need to go over with the shadow area. If you try to go over it while it's still wet, the darker color you put on will go on much darker on that wet area than if you were to put the pencil on without blending, because you're sort of blending the pencil in as you're putting it in, so it darkens it up. You will notice as you use the mineral spirits, you have the color darkens a lot. So try to avoid that. Sometimes it's helpful when you're trying to get a really dark area. It is helpful to just do a little line here or there where you need to. But just remember, those lines are going to show a lot. And to get those off later, it's a little bit more work, or to lighten those up. So just take that into consideration. But sometimes it can be helpful when you want that really dark spot or that little really dark line or shadow, and you want to just have that slight dampness of the paper still with the mineral spirits, then you can be able to get that kind of line. But I usually let it dry completely and then go back and go there. But there is times where you may find it useful, but I usually try to let it dry completely and then go to it. So I go to another area, work on that, and then come back and refine what I need to find or apply more layers. You can see now on his back, I'm again paying attention to the shadows, the structure of his body, the skin of his body, the shadow of the scales. All of that will make his body look more realistic. So you see there, I'm coming through again with some of the darker areas, the shadow areas, and I'm bringing that in just to bring those little blades all looking more three-dimensional. As I said, when you're drawing, you will go back and forth. You will see something as you're working on an area or you're waiting for the mineral spirits to dry. You will notice an area that's maybe needs more color or needs another shadow. Study your reference photo thoroughly before putting your pencil to paper. Before even doing the drawing, study your reference photo. See the shadows, the highlights, what is required from you, what you need to do to achieve that texture, whether it's fur, whether it's scales, whether it's feathers. How do you achieve that texture? So coming back to the pencils, I think the Derwent Lightfast pencils are definitely worth the investment. For this piece, I've used the 72 set Derwent Lightfast, and I must say they blended beautifully together. They blended well with the mineral spirits. They are definitely now one of my favorite pencils. The other being my Faber-Castell Polychromos. They were definitely, I was able to achieve the results I wanted with them. So I would definitely recommend them to anybody who wants to draw more realistically or does color pencil drawing. This is definitely a pencil they can add to the pencils that they're currently using. So you can see now as I'm working on the blades on the back of his neck and back, I am working individually on each one and just making sure I bring out the shadows just so that we can see the ones overlapping and the ones behind. Also retaining some of that highlight area, which is the lighter areas with the light is hitting. And the reference photo was more dull, so I just wanted to bring out a bit more color in them so that you can see them, they look more better for the drawing. And I'm just going back and forth, refining some of those shadow areas, the highlight areas, going through the body, through his face anyway, just seeing if there's anything I need to change, any shadows I need to add, anything I need to darken a bit more, anything I need to lighten. Like I said before, you will go through the drawing when you're done with it, and you'll see certain things that you need to just touch up here and there and add a thing or two here and there, and that's what makes your drawing look even more better. Sometimes a small line or spot or something will make the drawing look so much better, even though it's such a small change. So I think that's it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, don't forget to like. And if there's someone who you think will also enjoy this video, don't forget to share. And if you'd like to see more of my art videos with my drawings and my art tip videos as well, don't forget to subscribe. And I think that's it. So thank you all again for watching, and till the next video. Bye.